Hi everybody, welcome back to this lesson 4 in this FluteBox Basics Masterclass series. This is going to be our last lesson together and we're going to be putting together all of the sounds that we've discovered as well as having a look at one of my solo beatbox arrangements. Before we get going, I thought I'd just like to show you my motivational t-shirt that I've decided to don for today, and it says, "If at first you don't succeed, freestyle." So I think that's quite an important thing to remember throughout all of this process, that beatboxing, flute beatboxing really does become your own and there are no rules. It's up to you to just freestyle and find your own way. Okay, so we're going to do a quick warm-up like we've done before. So thinking about the muscles in the face, so just giving those cheeks a bit of a rub, maybe stretching high, stretching low, and don't forget the thumbs around the jaw, just to try and relax some of those muscles before you get going. Quick recap on the breathing as well. So if you remember, taking nice deep breath, engaging those abdominal muscles and using something like this exercise just to see if you can get used to controlling that air. So we'll try that together. How about trying some pulses as well? This is really going to wake up those abdominals, so you can start the sound and then stop it. Start it and stop it. And to do that, you are just literally engaging and relaxing those abdominal muscles. Warm up complete, it's on to our sounds. So first of all, we're going to be putting together the B and the K sound. So this is our bass drum and our snare drum sound. Now, an easy way to remember this when you're alternating from one to the other is to use that classic phrase, boots and cats. But we're going to take away the S from boot. So boot and cat. So B and K. So going from one to the other. Thinking about the larynx as we go, so if you remember, the B requires the open throat, so relaxed and low at the bottom, and the K is more forwards and a more closed sound, so the larynx is higher. Okay, so let's try that with our track that we've got for today. So a B on beat 1 and a K sound on beat 3. After 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's move on to adding in our closed hi-hat sound on beats 2 and 4. If you're using the words to help you remember the sounds, you can add in your S's now after the boot and the cat. So we've now got boots and cats, but try to keep those beats as separate as possible. So remember, the bass drum is the open throat, nice low larynx, and the K sound and the TS is going to be more forwards and more in the closed position. Okay, let's try that with our track. After 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. cats pattern is a really popular pattern that you can use for any time signature in 4/4. You can vary this pattern also to make it more interesting. So things like using a double bass drum on beats 1. So you could go. You could add in that bass drum on beat 4. You can add 8th notes on the hi-hat and even 16th notes on the hi-hat using the inhale and the exhales that we looked at earlier. So, or if you want to simplify things, you can miss out some of the sounds. So how about missing out the hi-hat sound on beat 4? You can also play around with offbeat rhythms. So you could make your k into a quaver on the second half of the 3rd beat of the bar. Or how about adding an offbeat rhythm at the end of the bar with another bass beat? So the possibilities really are endless. Play around and see what works for you. Okay, so now it's time to add some flute sounds to our boots and cats. And here's a little groove that I've written which fits with our track for today. So we're going to play full flute notes on our bass drum and our snare drum sound, and then our hi-hat sounds we can rest, and that's a good place to breathe. So something like... Note how I'm rolling my flute slightly outwards as I do the hi-hat sound there, so that I'm trying not to catch any flute sound with it. This is obviously something that's an added extra, so don't worry if you just want to keep your flute in position as you do the whole groove. Let's try it with the track. After 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't worry if you had lots of split notes there like I did, or if some of your sounds just came out as Aeolian sounds. It's all just practice and just a case of keeping going and finding out what works best for you. As we said earlier, a nice way to vary the boots and cats is to add in some offbeat or syncopated rhythms. Now you don't just have to do that with the beatbox itself. You can add in some syncopation with the flute line. So here we have the groove that we've just played, but you can see that the 3rd beat in each bar has been moved forwards by a 8th note or quaver, and that gives us a syncopation in the flute line with the beatbox still on the beat. This can be something that's really tricky at first because you've almost got to split your brain into 2 so that you can focus on both lines at once. But if you can manage it and master it, then it means you've got total control over what you're doing with your flute notes and with your beatbox. So it's a really good thing to practice. So the groove will now sound something like this. Okay, so now it's your turn. Let's try that with our track. After 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. put our beatbox sounds together and had a go at adding our flute part, we're going to have a look at one of my solo beatbox arrangements. This is Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. So we're going to have a look at the part first, which is possibly the most simplest and leads quite nicely on from what we've just done, which is where we've just got our beatbox and our normal flute notes. So here's the passage that we're looking at. You can see we've got a kind of boots and cats arrangement with the bass drum, the hi-hat and the snare, and then we go straight back to the bass drum with a quick rest and then a syncopation on beat 3 with the hi-hat, the snare and the hi-hat again. So the basic beatbox sounds a bit like this. So hopefully you can start to recognise that famous groove. So I would have a go at practising this first on your own, getting comfortable with the beatbox alone before you add in the flute notes. Now adding in the flute notes requires an F sharp, a G sharp, an A and a G sharp, and you can see that the beat kind of goes across the beatbox. So again we've got this cross rhythm idea going on, and we're going to make sure that we place the G sharp on the B, the bass drum, the second bass drum in the bar, and then we can rest for the rest of the bar. So I would focus on thinking about your flute notes going along with your bass drum sound, and the rest should fall into place. So it sounds a little bit like this. So a really nice straightforward one to practice. Now let's have a look at a slightly more complicated extract. So you can see here that the beatbox line uses the same groove that we had before, alternating with a different pattern in every other bar. So the second bar here has bass drum and then just a quick hi-hat sound at the end, and then just bass drum on the fourth bar. So the beatbox will sound like this. So don't worry that that rhythm feels a little bit complicated because of the alternation in the second and fourth bars between the dotted crotchet and the crotchet. It's actually easier when you put the flute part together because you can be guided by the rhythm of the flute part. Now notice that the flute part has some aeolian sounds now being introduced so that we get the kind of back groove that's in the piece. So you have to make sure that the full flute sound is then being masked on those beats. So the flute part alone will sound like this. Now again, don't worry if the aeolian sound is tricky to produce on its own without the beatbox. When you put them both together, the beatbox will help to mask the flute sound. So all together, it should sound something like this. Here's one final extract from the piece for you, and this uses some more variations in the beatbox line as well as mixing up again the aeolian sound and the full flute sound. So the beatbox line alone goes like this. So again, some of those rhythms can be easier when you combine them with the flute part. The flute part alone goes a little bit like this. And then we can put it all together. You may have noticed as I demonstrated that the semiquaver and quaver groups in the first and second bar, for instance, are not indicated to be slurred, but I do in fact slur them. It is possible to tongue them, but I don't think it takes away anything by slurring them. So bear this in mind with your beatbox scores, that actually sometimes regular tonguing isn't strictly necessary. So to conclude our exploration of Billie Jean, here's the first page of my arrangement, which includes all of the extracts which we've looked at today. So if you enjoyed that, check out the full version on YouTube. You can also download the sheet music for yourself from sheetmusicplus.com. The link for that will be in the description box below. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed your exploration of flute beatboxing as much as I've enjoyed putting this little masterclass series together for you. If you have any questions or comments, please do leave them in the comment section down below and I will get back to you. I highly recommend that you check out some of the resources that I've mentioned throughout the course, and I have links to those in the sheet which you can download. If you'd like to have a private lesson with me, you are more than welcome. Details are all listed on my website. You can also enjoy other arrangements which I've made on YouTube here, and you can also download the sheet music for many of those as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I wish you all the best on your flute beatboxing journey.